Hello and welcome to In the Room. This is a very special episode of In the Room today because it's an interview with the fantastic, the legendary James Acaster. This interview is actually in two parts because I go into detail about his building of his new show. And because he hasn't toured that new show yet, but he did build it here at the Bill Murray, I talk about it in detail, but I can't release that information with spoilers about the show until that tour is done. So this interview is in two parts. The first part, which I believe is about 45 minutes long, is an interview with James about his process that does mention the new show a little bit, but not in the kind of detail that this podcast usually does go into detail for, in the actual kind of small detail of process. And it also looks at what James, how he writes, who he thinks is amazing in the comedy industry, and offers a load of other insights about comedy and the process of being a world famous comedian. I really enjoyed chatting to him, and I hope you enjoy this conversation with the fantastic James Acaster. The thing that I wanted to ask right at the top was, when did we first meet?
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, can you remember the first time we met? Because it was at the Camden Head, I think.
It probably would have been. I mean, although I feel like I already knew you before starting doing your gigs. When you started, just in case anyone listening to us doesn't know, so Barry and a group of other comics, we all started at the same time, and Barry and a group of comedians started out regular, like, gig for new comedians that was free entry at the Camden Head, this venue where many people had put on gigs. And for some reason, you guys just made it work with it was free entry, I guess,
Yeah.
but it was absolutely rammed, and they were lovely every time. So that's when I would have started like doing more stuff with you guys. But I swear I'd already met you before that. I can't remember when it was exactly, but I don't think I was going into that gig going, oh, I'll do these randos. I think I was like, oh, it's Barry and Sarah, and I think I had
And can you
met you
remember,
guys.
because you knew me and Sarah,
Yeah.
but also Katerina? You knew Katerina back then
Yeah, I
much?
think so.
And
And like, I don't
Linus?
know if Masood was involved straight away. I don't think I knew Masood until I started doing Camden Head a bit more and
Yeah.
seeing Masood there.
Yeah, Masood kind of got more involved when he started dating Sarah, and he was around a lot then. But Masood
That
was
old
also
trick.
around a lot. Yeah, inveigled his way in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I remember a gig at the Water Rats where it was a really quiet gig. I think it was Hills Jago running it,
Cool.
and it was. I mean, there were about 7 people in, and I remember before you went on stage, just going, Barry, would you mind sitting at the back because you concentrate too much and you've got a face like thunder when you're watching. And I was like, yeah, that's absolutely me.
What a
But
thing
you
to
don't want.
say.
But the thing is,
You
you
would have
don't
had a
want.
massive beard then
Yeah,
as
I would
well.
have had a
Yeah,
massive
yeah.
serious look on my face as I was watching. But
Oh, that's
but
incredibly rude of me, Barry. I
it
think
not.
that sounds awful.
But no, no,
Just
no.
sit in the back, Barry. You're putting me off. No, on stage. Yeah,
That wasn't what you said.
yeah,
It was really, really understandable. There was, because the thing is, like as a comedian, I'd say the same to
yeah,
you, because as a comedian, we're thinking a lot. Like we're thinking more than we're laughing when watching.
yeah,
You're making notes. You're not a real audience member so much.
yes,
So sometimes you sit at the front, think, "I'll be supportive," but you're not laughing. You're just a
yeah.
body
I don't
there.
want a comedian on the
Yeah.
front row.
No,
Whoever that comedian is,
no.
I don't want to look down and see. I mean, someone's going to look over their heads, but sometimes you're just painfully aware,
Yeah.
especially if it's a quiet one.
Yeah.
You don't even have to be looking at them to know that comedian's not laughing at you because you can be able to hear it. So yeah,
Yeah, the amount of times I don't know if you've had this, but that I've kind of almost lost a gig because I'm playing to the one comedian in the
sure.
room or the 2 comedians in the room rather than everything else.
Or they're in my head.
Yeah,
They're in my head. It's like I really want to show off to such and such. They come. That's what it is. Whenever comedians come and see me, especially comedians who are my friends, I really want to show off to them, and that's like something that like I embrace and quite look
yeah,
forward to. Like,
yeah,
oh great, I get to show off to my mates. And then when it's not going well,
yeah,
especially if it's a comic who like is your friend, but you're not hanging out with all the time,
yeah,
then it's like, oh, you're not sure if they're going to go away and think, oh, that show needs a lot of work. And you're like, no, it's been going good though.
yeah.
Even though, We
Yeah.
know that they won't be thinking that harshly. We don't do
No.
that when we watch each other. But like, yeah, it's still that's when it'll get in my head. I'll be like, oh god damn it. So you know, whoever
Exactly.
is into know, Lucy probably wants that. She's watching this. She probably thinks I'm a loser.
And then for me, it plays out the next time I see them. It's like, oh yeah, they've they've ripped me off. That's it. That's done now. There's a part. Yeah. There's for me. There's a part of the fact that running the club actually kind of like
Oh yeah,
is a test is how much I'm frightened of pissing people off. Of
yeah,
just like, well, at least I'll always have a stage format
yeah.
because it's my own gig.
We were talking before the podcast about not being able. You were mentioning not being able to view. We can't see how other people see us
Yeah.
and stuff. And I was going to ask you, but you mentioned the club anyway. But like, are you aware of how you guys are viewed by the comedy community and stuff like that with that venue, or is it like I was saying before to you that it's easy for me to just take off menu for granted?
Yeah.
Is it easy for you to take that the
Ah.
Bill Murray for granted and not be like, wow, look at what we've built. This is like properly
Yeah.
part of the comedy landscape. It's like
Yeah.
going to be written into the history of UK comedy now.
That's not
You
how
know,
I see it whatsoever. I see
yeah.
it as so for me, it's an open mic gig that got out of hand. Honest,
Mm,
like, and partly that is because inside of it, there's so much other stuff. Like, I feel like I got involved. It became so much a part of what I was doing that it almost took away from, well, it did take away from my stand up.
yeah.
Like, I want to be a stand up more than anything else.
Hmm.
And I'd done like 10 years of Edinburgh's and nothing had really happened out of it. And I was really struggling to just find stage time.
Hmm.
And the club was an answer to that. And then it kind of got out of hand.
Right.
And then when me and Katerina broke up, it was kind of, it was me and Sarah doing it. So there's
Hmm.
fewer people, but I certainly don't see it out as significant.
Mm.
I see it as, oh, this is great. I've got a place to perform, and hopefully it doesn't piss too many people off. That's genuinely because I'll be walking through, I'll say hello to people, and my general feeling when I leave a room is like, well, I fucked that up.
Hmm.
That's so in general, I kind of like I don't have a sense of that.
Wow.
But yeah,
Well, it's
uh,
done very well. Well, you
well,
should be proud of yourself.
well,
Like, yeah.
but I mean, it's interesting that you say that as well, because I think that like we were talking about that with off menu. But how would you say that you see that like you're that kind of you hold off menu as lightly as you hold your stand up, or would you say that with your stand up you have a little bit more of a, oh, I like what I've done here, this is, or not that you don't like off menu, but you hold it with more significance maybe than,
Well, I
or
guess it's the thing that off menu, you don't have to prep for it. When you turn up and you do the conversation, you're trying to get better at that still, and trying to like make sure that you show up and make sure that you give it your best every time.
yeah,
But on average, we're doing 2 hours a week on that podcast, or 1 hour a week even, and so you're not like always thinking about it in between podcast episodes. You're not like, right, how am I gonna
yeah,
improve
yeah,
on that and make that better? We've done enough now to know how to work together, and it's the kind of an improv exercise more than anything. And then, yeah, with your stand up, you're just having to go around with your notes and constantly writing on, thinking about the last gig and that went wrong, and how can I avoid that happening again, and
yeah,
rewriting it, and thinking about your performance and all of that stuff.
yeah,
And it can affect my mood way more than
because
a
you
bad
invest.
gig will affect my mood a lot more than a tricky podcast episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I suppose also because you've invested, like you say, a lot more time, and that comes into like the latest show, which I don't know. Have you got a title? Or are you just a work in
I'm just
progress?
calling it James Acaster
Right. Okay.
because there's like a joke in the show that means it kind of has to be called that.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I'm just calling it that.
Ja-
Maybe all in caps
James
lock.
Acaster as James Acaster.
You well, yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, but and I suppose the one of the things, how has that show been to make so far? What's your been experience? Because I was listening to, for the prep for this interview, I listened to a few other ones, and the one with Hattie Crisell, you were mentioning how during lockdown you kind of began to give yourself a bit more of a break in terms of like, oh, actually, the constant dynamo of doing, I can't remember how it was 8 or 9 shows you did on the trot, just building a show, doing a tour, building a show, doing a tour, and that relentless kind of just working, and then talking about giving a break. And I think Heckler's Welcome, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Heckler's Welcome was very much almost like you kind of stating that you're giving yourself a break. You know what? This will go the way it goes.
Sure.
And if there are hecklers, I've got a show, but if there are hecklers, there are, and I'm owning that, and I'm giving myself the break for it not having to be perfect every night.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And but so with that in mind, given that the lockdown was a while ago, where you kind of almost had a socially enforced break,
Yeah.
how are you finding making the show and balancing things like off menu or everything else you're doing, films?
Yeah.
How are you? How's that at the moment?
Yeah, well, I definitely wanted to see if I can do a show that the end result feels like um, the shows that I did before the lockdowns, and feels like it's been honed as much as possible, but without doing a work in progress every single night for a year or so,
Yeah.
then a tour show every single night for longer than that, and then film it, and then just running myself into the ground, and sacrificing my own well-being for the good of the show. So like this one is I've just basically been doing things that I didn't do before that will reduce the amount of work in progress I need to do. So I'm actually sitting down and writing it out. The whole thing is written out in a Word doc,
Yeah.
and whenever I change something, I go into that doc and change it. And that might sound so basic,
Yeah.
but I used to do that, stopped doing it in favor of just writing on stage, and if it's good, I'll remember it. And that worked for a while, but now I'm having to reteach myself the discipline of sitting down and writing it. And there's always the fear that once it's written down, when you do it on stage, it will sound like you're reading it off of a piece of paper. So it's still being like, you don't have to get it word perfect what's on there, but let's like have something that we are actively working on that makes it better. And then the other thing is just filming it and watching it back. You guys have always filmed shows at the Bill Murray if we ask you to, when we do work in progress, and that's the place I've done the most work in progress is for this. And I've always hated watching myself back. Everyone hates watching themselves back, no matter what their job is. They don't want to watch themselves back. And I'm just having to get over that and be like, whenever I film a special, I watch it back, and that really helps sometimes inform. Sometimes, as you're editing it, you can change the show for the better, and you always think to yourself, well, what if I watched this from the beginning? I wonder how much quicker I would have sorted out some of the problems with the show. So like I've actually
Yeah.
been doing that this time as well, which has been great. And
Yeah.
like, I think that's worth about 10 work in progresses, watching it back and making the notes and tightening it up. And even when you think you've had a brilliant one, sometimes you watch it back and go, no, this isn't anywhere near as good as I thought this gig went.
Yeah.
Because actually, it's too wordy, and they were a lovely audience, and that got me through it. But you can still see all the problems with it that you couldn't see before, because you were on stage going, "This is going so good, they're loving it tonight." And actually, you've got so much fat on that show. There's so many things that you just were lucky that audience was so on board that they understood what you were talking about. And actually, watching it back is so much more helpful. So yeah, I'm just trying to do things like that and speed up that process, and also making the show shorter. The show is, I'm going back to doing an hour long show rather than a 2 hour show, which I've been doing for the last two tours. And that was because one of them naturally evolved into 2 hours, and then the next one I thought, well, I do 2 hour shows now, and so I did a 2 hour show for no reason. And then when I edited it for the special, I was like, this is an hour and a quarter.
You've become Ken Dodd.
Yeah. And again,
Like,
that was the Hector's Welcome tour. So that was I was being easier on myself with that. And it was helpful in so many ways, including figuring that out and going, actually, maybe we go back to doing an hour instead.
yeah. I mean, so I'm so fantastic you being at the Bill Murray, and I think everybody loved having you around.
Oh,
And thanks for coming.
Oh, cheers.
And and one of the privileges that I have with the venue is getting to see works over a period of time if somebody's working stuff up. And like it really did, like it it was one of the things that I had to ask you today, had in the book to ask you today, is how you get the words so perfect. So like I've come back from Edinburgh and I had very similar, the privilege of being able to work on a show for a month,
Yeah.
which was how I viewed it. Work in progress. It was such a delight to be able to do the show, listen back to it in the morning, write it out again, try and learn stuff. But one of the things that I struggle with is learning lines exactly, especially when lots of things are moving at the same
Yeah.
time. Lines are moving and things are moving. Like, do you have, like, what do you find easier or harder about that particular process?
I think it's just like for a while when you're working the show up, it's like let's not be too precious about the wording of it, because like often what you write on a computer and then what you say out loud doesn't really work in the same way.
Yeah.
So like um whatever the draft is that I've written up in Word, don't need to learn that verbatim. Go on stage, and then when you do hit on a turn of phrase that is like that works, and then you go back in the Word doc, put that in,
Yeah.
and make sure that that's what you return to. And there's some routines where it's not essential, and there's some routines where yeah, I really have to get that word in right,
Mm.
otherwise they're not going to understand what I'm on about, and the thing that I'm talking about is a little bit more delicate. And if I simply get one word wrong or like don't nail this language down, they're going to be unsure as to what side of the argument I'm on or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And those ones are the really important ones when you are like maybe thinking off stage a bit more as well. Like, okay, how am I going to phrase this so they are so that they're so clear on what I mean and what I think.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that can just be the difference in getting a laugh or not. It is just like they're not laughing because they're not sure
Yeah.
if you're similar simple as like punching down or punching up, which gets talked about a lot, but it does affect how the audience laugh at you. And if you haven't made it clear in the language, they are like, okay, we're not sure. You know, they're not judging you, but they're just like, I'm not sure what direction
Yeah.
we're laughing in here.
Yeah.
And you do have to, you know, just make it and simply just write in it as clearly as possible, and not even trying to write it in as funny way as possible, just in as clear a way as possible
Yeah.
can make it funnier because they understand where you're coming from and they relate to it or whatever. So
And do you have a specific example just to kind of unpack it?
yeah, I'm trying to think because I mean the show I'm doing now, I've got an example because that's what I was thinking of specifically, but like uh I mean there was something that actually isn't a delicate subject at all, but in the past show where it was the first time I ever realized it, and I probably spoke about it on a podcast before, maybe even on one of the ones you um listened to, but like uh no, I have spoken about that
Don't feel
before.
bad about repeating
Yeah,
because everyone
but
goes and listens to it.
it was a routine about stealing the spoons from Oaxaca and then returning them and getting free tacos, which was a genuine deal that Oaxaca had at the time because people were stealing their spoons. So they said if you bring them back in January, we'll give you free tacos. And I said, you know, it's a win-win for Oaxaca because they get their spoons back and they get to watch the thieves eat tacos, which I imagine have been interfered with beyond belief. And I think with that, when I was writing it, I was like, I think everyone in the room has already thought, well, I wouldn't want to eat those tacos because I'm sure they've probably gobbed in them or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you just have to phrase it in a way that they haven't, you know, that is better than what they've phrased it
Yeah.
as. So just coming up with a funny turn of phrase often is enough for that kind of thing. And uh, and then that, yeah, we'll get that across. I mean, I guess in the Cold Lasagna show that I toured that in 2019 and released it a couple of years later. But with that show, there was so many routines that um, I didn't want the audience thinking uh, I was on the other side of, or you know, even when it was like talking about, uh, you know, a relationship where my partner left me for like someone famous, you know, like I didn't want that to be a gossip bit, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and was very, had to be very clear with my language throughout. So it was very clear we're not laughing at them,
Yeah.
we're laughing at me and my situation, and even like literally saying that to them.
Yeah.
And it meant that when the tabloids did try and write an article about it, it didn't succeed. It didn't really take off because there wasn't enough juice there
You'd
that
owned
they
them.
could quote me and do anything with it. You know, they gave it a good go, but like, you know, and I did get scared when I first saw it was in at least the online papers. I don't know if it even made it to print, but like, you know, that felt like a big deal to me, but it wasn't a big deal to anyone else. No one saw it. The story didn't catch on.
Mm.
And I think that if I'd not been as clear with my language, then that might not have been the case. They might have been able to quote me out of context and it look a lot worse than it was and a lot shittier and bitchier than it was.
Yeah.
But actually, they couldn't pull anything out really that wasn't clearly a joke or wasn't, you know, actually quite generous
Yeah.
to everyone else involved. So yeah, I think that show, especially with the stuff I was talking about, a lot of personal stuff, it was important that the language was clear and that it wasn't just James Acaster settles a bunch of scores and tries to get the
Which
audience to
is
care about it.
which is a show that would be cathartic to make,
Yeah,
but I think John Cleese already did that tour.
sure, he probably did, and it's that thing where the audience you get for those things, you know, audiences don't care
No.
if you know if you were wronged by someone and you're annoyed by it. It just seems so petty to them, and what they really want to do is just see themselves in things. And even with stuff like what I was talking about in that show, again, the funny thing is imagining themselves in my position, because
Yeah.
that's more what they can do. Go like, oh yeah, this famous person, I can imagine if that happened to me, what my life would be like then.
There's the two things that come to mind. Firstly, I think I was in the room where in the day, or you were playing it. It was in the Bill Murray when you realise you would leave through Rowan Atkinson's face.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, because
That
it's
just like he's on the
painted on the outside
fucking
of the
wall.
building.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the extra little joke I could do just in the
Yeah.
Bill Murray. Would be like, this
The
is how, because
humiliation.
I had a line about him being everywhere.
Yeah.
I was like, he's painted as a
Yeah.
mural on the side of this building of his face that
Yeah.
I've got to walk out of when I
Yeah.
get. Yeah, yeah, it was
But I think that
extra.
points to what I also think works when you do talk about these things. And this is a question about the detail of your writing in a way, but I'll get to it in a roundabout way. Like there's a story that you tell that is in Classic Scrapes about DJing a friend's wedding, I think it
Uh-huh.
is, or it might have been in the book, or it might have been something you mentioned on the podcast, but where you have no Wi-Fi and there is no way of giving giving the people coming up asking for requests what they want.
Yeah.
Just like you've just got what you want, and they keep coming up and they just keep thinking you're a dickhead for not doing it.
Yes.
Like, and there is no way of getting that across. And I think a lot of your stories, and I'm curious as to firstly how much you're aware of it, but also how much of the accuracy of your language is important in order to get this across. That within a lot of these stories, you are trying your best and being misunderstood
Sure.
to a point of like, it seems obtuse, or it seems like you're being obtuse, it seems like you're being deliberately obstructive, but it's just
Yeah.
like, no, honestly, within the structure here, I'm doing my best, which I think is something that it's Chaplin, it's a misunderstanding, it's a place we've all been in a lot, we can all relate to.
Yeah.
But and that's, I think, so much of what we can enjoy in that. But I don't know how much you've overthought that or thought about that, or you're aware of it, or
Yeah, I'm definitely aware. I mean, I think all of us, we're all doing what we think. Like, often people can justify whatever it is that they've done,
yeah.
and can go like, "This is the why I did it," and they have a reasoning behind it, which is like why it was the right thing to do. Sometimes even if it's just selfish and shitty, they've got a reason why.
Donald Trump for others reasons.
Yes, yeah. And so you always kind of start from there. But I think because of my upbringing, like going to church as a kid, going to a C of E school, going to the Scouts, which is very Christian, it's like everything is just like right and wrong and doing the right thing. And so I've always wanted to like do right by other people. And then you've kind of part of that upbringing as well is that you're raised to, even though actually, to be fair to the Crizzos, it's not in the Bible. It does say people will hate you for it. So, but
Where does it? Well, that's a paraphrase.
yeah,
Where
yeah,
does
they'll
it
hate you
say?
for loving Jesus and stuff. It's a very clever loophole because it means that if everyone tells you you're wrong and
It's
you,
because I love
yeah,
Jesus.
and then you go, well, Jesus said this was happened, and they'd all hate me for it. So I must be right. But yeah, you kind of like I definitely grew up thinking if I do the right thing, then things will work out. Like people will appreciate it. So like stuff like DJing at that wedding. You know, I I would love to. Again, we were talking earlier before the podcast about seeing yourself from the outside. I would love to know what it looked like or how it was received when I told the people why I couldn't play the songs. Because I know that I was just trying to be as open with them as possible and going, oh, the thing is, I've got no Wi-Fi here. So all I've got is the tracks that I've bought and the tracks that the bride and groom sent me.
Yeah.
But that's it. And can't I can't play anything else.
Yeah.
And I thought that would be like, oh, don't worry about it. I'll make sure people know or whatever. But instead they were like, so what, you're just not going to play my song? Are you like, I don't know what else to say here. And I don't know if I was coming across as like, you know, some patronizing
Yeah.
knob or whatever. Like, I could have been. Especially when you're shouting over the music, you can't really talk in a relaxed way.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
just
yeah.
being like, you have to shout
Maybe it was that thing that made
directly,
it. Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, to them, and you're keeping an eye on the music because you're talking to them, but you've got 30 seconds
You're
left on
working.
that,
Yeah.
so you're not really fully. So they're like, this fucking guy, you know. So like, whatever it is, and and definitely when I was growing up, there was a massive sense that I had of everything. Like, if it was unfair, you know, I would really get up in arms about it. And now I think I just kind of, especially through stand up and through the way that audiences have behaved over the years, on and off stage,
Yeah.
you kind of
Yeah.
go, okay, I'm abandoning any hope in like it's all about their own shit as well. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just, I'm not the only ego in the room.
Yeah.
There's everyone going through their stuff, and someone coming up to me and trying to start a fight because I won't play Bryan Adams at a wedding it's not like, well, this is my show,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, for starters, it's a wedding, so it's very much not the DJ's day.
You're saying
But
that.
like,
I've seen enough wedding
sure,
DJs that it is very much their day.
sure, they can steal the show. If everyone knows that marriage hasn't really got legs, then it can be the DJ's day. But yeah, the those people coming up to you have got their own stuff. They're not just going to go around going, making sense and being like, oh yeah, fair enough, James. If we're all on yours, so I just want you to have a good time.
Yeah.
You know, they're bringing their own stuff. They've just got divorced and now they're going to a wedding. And it's not a fun day for them, and they can take it out on the DJ. But like, yeah, but I'd be very.
But it's such a big part of I think what makes what some of the magic formula of why we enjoy your comedy so much is you get into those situations well-meaning in a well-meaning way. So especially the personal stuff that you talk about, just like we've all been in that situation, you know, like we've all been in a situation where we're trying our best and everyone thinks we're a dick, or we've managed to screw it up in that kind of way. But I suppose what you're talking about in your where you were saying that you're not the only ego in the room, kind of also suppose talks about fame is like something that I've always thought about, is that I'm not sure how I'd be able to cope with the idea of the Daily Mail writing something, or you know, or that pressure, or getting recognized, or somebody coming up to you and saying, oh, can I have this thing? It's like, I really can't right now. And then they hate you and they're attacking you on Twitter and you've made an enemy for life or whatever it is.
Sure.
But all of that works. How do you find, how has your journey been through that? Because I actually don't think that people talk about it, because it's a weird experience to be where way more people know about you than you know about them. You can't know enough people. Like the off menu gets millions of downloads. Like you don't know millions of people, so you don't know them.
Yeah.
But how do you like, what's been your journey through being in the center of a kind of a lot of different eyes more eyes looking at you kind of thing? Has that been has that changed that journey, or has that
Oh
been...
yeah, definitely, and I think it will continue to as well. I remember watching, and you know, they do those actors round tables every time it's awards season,
Yeah.
and I'll always watch those for as long as I can stand them, and then turn them off when someone said something so ludicrous that I'm fizzing with anger. But like, but yeah, I watched one of those once, and Henry Winkler was on it.
Okay,
It
yeah.
was like a comedy actors round table, and he was saying about his, you know, because obviously he's just like known for this one character, even though he's done so many incredible roles, and now I think less so. He's known for the Fonz, but
Yeah.
that's still going
He's
to
still
be
the
on his
Fonz.
grave,
He's
and
the
he
guy.
knows that.
Yeah.
But he loves it now. But obviously, you know, to begin with, did struggle with it,
Yeah.
and now he's just like sees it that he's part of these people's lives that they've let him and this character into their lives, and that's an honor and a privilege, and not everyone gets to do that. So he loves it when people come up to him and want a photo, or want to talk to him. But I think it takes a long time to get to that point, and you can, and also it depends, how people are talking to you. I think
Mm.
each new level of it is a bit jarring and scary, and because suddenly it's like more people can see you, and
Yeah.
that doesn't always feel comfortable. And for a while there, it was like, I mean, maybe, I don't know when this would have been, like 2014 to 2018-ish, 19-ish. Like, a lot of the people who would come up to me would be quite forceful and rude. They grab you, try and pull you over to their mates to come and do a photo, tell you not to be a dickhead, get
Yeah.
over yourself, come and do this photo.
Yeah.
Saying a lot of things. I mean, the classic one is always going like, what you can't fucking stop for a photo is you think you're too much of a big deal. And it's like, I don't think I'm a big deal. You're the one who's acting like I'm a big deal right now. I
Yeah.
want to go and sit with my friend.
Yeah.
So I'm the normal guy
Yeah.
who thinks I'm not a big deal. I'm just going to have a coffee with my mate
Yeah.
and catch up about our days. You want me to stop with some strangers and have a selfie? I think that sounds more arrogant of me to be doing that when my friend's waiting. But there would always be that kind of thing, and you know, I got the first time that stuff started happening, I would just be, I would try and like at the wedding, I'd try and reason with them
Yeah.
because I was just like, I've never had people come up to me like that before. I didn't see myself as any different from anyone else because I'm not. So when they would come up to me and go, uh, if they came up and said, "Hey, I like your stand-up," he'd just be like, "Oh, that's great, thank you."
Yeah.
But if they went, if you were doing something like having dinner with a mate or whatever, and they were like, "Oh, you're off that show. You're the guy off that show. Mate, come and have a selfie with my girlfriend. She's fucking hammered, but she won't be able to believe it's you." And I go, and I try in that moment early on, I'll be like, I'm having dinner with my friend right now, and you wouldn't interrupt anyone else and do this? And they're like, what? What's your problem?
Yeah.
And you'd be like, no, look around, and trying to win an argument with them.
Yeah.
It's
Or
very,
just state the case. Like, it's not even winning an argument. It's just saying this is the way things are for me.
yeah.
Is that be reasonable? It's a very reasonable thing to
Well, you
say.
think it is, but then in the moment you realize it's not, because it is that thing of like with DJing. Actually, what you learn to do is to say to them, yeah, sure, I'll play it in a sec, even though you haven't got it.
Yeah.
So don't tell them you haven't got Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
tell them the whole thing. Just go, absolutely, and then they go, yeah, and then they go off to their mates, and then you don't see them again because they
It's
forget. They
it's
forget that you were even gonna. Well, he says he's gonna play it, and then they get more drunk, and then they forget about the song, and it
yeah.
doesn't. And your mistake was going to them. I'm a human being, and so are you, and we should act like people right now. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
actually, you're not dealing with that. So like when someone comes up to you and goes, "You're that guy from that thing. Come over here, see my girlfriend." If you just go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't right now,"
Yeah.
and so it's not going, "Yeah, I'll do it," but it's going like, "Oh, I'm really sorry, but I'm here with this
Yeah.
person."
Yeah. Yeah.
Then they do kind of go, "Oh, okay," because apologizing is completely unnecessary,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and that kind of hits them like that as well. They do kind of go, "Oh, okay," that puts it in context more than someone going, "Would you speak to anyone
It's
else in
more
here like that?"
humanizing.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
quite cringe remembering how I used to try and like do that with them. So
Yeah.
yeah, you get better at just saying that. And now, to be honest, I don't get anyone like that come up to me. Now I'm not on those same, not really doing all the panel shows anymore. And mainly what they've known me from is stand up or the podcast.
Yeah.
So they just come up and go, I just want to say I really like whatever it was they've seen. And sometimes they'll ask for a selfie, but very nicely.
Yeah.
Sometimes because of, conversations like this on podcasts, they will come up and go, I know you absolutely hate this. And I was like, no, I've not even said I hate it. I know you
Yeah.
say you hate our guts when we come up to you and talk to you. It's like, I haven't said that.
The,
But
the
So
Well,
there's that as well.
well, that's the same. So it's the Aikido thing of like rolling with the energy, but also like not Aikido as much as it's how you deal with Alzheimer's patients. You know that you don't if somebody with Alzheimer's comes up
Entertain
to
their
you, you just kind
fantasy.
of go entertain their fancy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that in a bit. But I'm just talking to my friend, and then we'll.
Yeah.
But there's an element of you have to go with their worldview, but also be a human in it, I suppose. And that's, I mean, it's got to be, yeah, so tough. But it also made me realize, so the way that you've transitioned into whether consciously or unconsciously to do off menu and more of your own stuff is quite similar to, I think there was a period where Daniel Kitson was kind of deliberately making it, there's a barrier to entry to watch him, like he was doing early shows or not doing Friday and Saturday shows
Mm.
in order to weed out people that were the people that come out, oh my, you were on Peter K's thing or whatever it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
that he'd been on. And so that, and obviously he didn't have podcasts, didn't have anything else, so he was weeding it out by putting kind of being on a different time of day or not being in those areas. But I suppose with off menu and with like not being on TV in those areas as much, you're kind of making sure that the people that come up to you know you and like have, and that's true of the new show as well. Like the new show, one of my favorite lines for the show was, this show does rely on you knowing my back catalog,
Yeah.
which I
I
think
mean,
is
that's
a
not even a regular line, so that's fine to quote that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
Must have been one night.
but like I, you know, like I can't remember what the actual line was. The I write it down. It's not a show for newcomers. It's
Yeah.
very much a show for people that wear my back catalogue or know me. And by me, I mean Craig Simons,
Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
is a great line. But
I should have to put that back in. I mean, that was definitely improvised. I didn't watch that performance back, clearly. Should continue doing that. Man, send me that, Barry. Send me that. I think I can put that back in the show. I'm serious. Do send me that.
I will.
Yeah.
You said you just come back to writing more, and before you were kind of performing, and like initially you were like, let's get the scrutiny into the writing.
Hmm.
And I wonder, I've heard Bill Burr talk about doing act outs intentionally, going right. I for this special, I want to learn how to do this particular skill because
Hmm.
I don't really use it. And I just wonder whether in your, I mean, even from, you know, Lawnmower onwards, of like whether you've like when you've looked at specific skills at different parts of your career and gone, actually, I want to learn this a bit more, or been how intentional you've been, or even looking back, how you've realized afterwards, oh, I really learned that skill then.
Yeah, massively. So sort of, yeah, always. So like, definitely when I started out, you kind of obsessed with all of it as an open spot, but I was really obsessed with persona and finding my persona on stage. So that was like the main focus of gigs for ages, was what I'm wearing, how I'm acting, like what my character is on stage. And then after that, there was a big write-in push after seeing people like Mike Wozniak, who started at the same time as me, accelerate past all of us purely based on the fact that his writing was so much better. He was also, you know, he had a persona as well that worked and he had all of that, but his writing just exceeded all of ours. And I was talking to someone about, you know, Wozniak's debut show is one of the most significant shows, uh, I think, for my generation of comics. And maybe a lot of people don't know that in the public because, like, it really changed how new comedians approach Edinburgh. Before that, there was this very um, kind of regimented view of like you do your debut Edinburgh show when you've basically finished what would be some sort of doctorate in stand-up. You've got to like have done 8 years or 10 years, and then you can go and do your debut Edinburgh show. And Wozniak just went when no one knew who he was after a year,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
and was flying on, you know, Grass Market with a flyer that was a little stick man that said Mike Wozniak, and they have a photo of him on it.
Yeah.
I remember seeing him and going, that poor son of a bitch. Like, what has he done? He's like he stopped being a doctor and like, you know, he doesn't even live in London, I don't think, this guy. And like, and he was doing a venue that is no longer a venue, I don't think, and wasn't a venue before then, the Mercat. So
Mhm.
no one knew this venue.
Yeah.
And it was in the centre of Edinburgh, but it was still somewhere where people were used to just walking past. It didn't look like a venue from the outside. and you're like, this guy's screwed. And everyone else is doing like 10 minutes with their friends on a mixed bill on the Free Fringe or 20s or whatever, or trying to get on package shows.
Yeah.
And he's done this. And then he got nominated for newcomer. And then we came out of Edinburgh and he was headlining all the gigs that we were doing. And we were watching him and going, this material is so much better than all of our material. And I think all he's done is grown a mustache and sit down and gone, right, let's write this let's work really hard. And I don't have to wait to just naturally become a good comedian over time. I can just do it now. I can he had a work ethic, especially when it came, well, to the whole thing really, but like to writing especially, which I didn't see in anyone else.
Yeah.
That I was like, his choice of words, his choice of language is so much funnier than all of ours, and he kind of had clearly sat down and gone, "Do you know what? 50 minutes isn't that long. I can sit down and work quite hard on this, and if I nail the language down,
Yeah.
I can do 50 minutes that's funny, and I'll at least get better as a go." He did. I can't speak on Mike's behalf, but knowing him, he's a very humble man. I don't think he would have gone up going, "I'm going to get nominated and then my life will change." But he definitely thought, "I'll get better as a comedian if I do that, and that's better than just doing the same 10 minutes every day."
Yeah.
So yeah, when Mike did that, a lot of us focused on our writing more. And then
You've seen this guy, like,
yeah,
yeah,
it was
exactly.
proper like, oh, that's really funny, and there was nothing stopping any of us from sitting down and thinking about writing.
Which goes back
And
to what you're doing at the moment, which is kind of focusing on that again. There's a Arnold Schwarzenegger quote, which is left field, but it's like, give me 10 minutes focused in the gym, it's worth 2 hours unfocused. But it's that
okay,
focused performance of
I remember that.
like, but you're the Arnold Schwarzenegger. Mike
Yeah,
wasn't actually the Arnold Schwarzenegger
it is.
of the open
I'll
mic
happily
circuit.
go on record say that.
But although Arnold's got a poignant end, but story at the moment. But but yeah, so the writing for you was such a focus right at the beginning, and I think you said that you
Yeah,
didn't focus on performance much when you saw Mike. Like, fuck performance.
yeah.
Not that
Well,
harsh,
it was
but like,
just seeing. I mean, obviously, looking back, Mike's performance was note perfect too, but I didn't realize it because what stood out to me was just like that choice of language,
yeah,
and he can say that his first comic I was seeing just go on in any room, and because the language was so specific and funny, it would just always work. And going like, I've got to learn to do that. I've got to think about the words I use more in the language of it and being economic with my language and all of that. And then after that, I think I did that until about 2012. Just really, I was quite pulled back and didn't put any thought into my delivery at all, really, and my performance. And then after that, I think definitely 2014 of doing like the Undercover Cop show
yeah.
was more like, let's perform this a bit more, have fun.
Did having a persona as well, because you're so, like, I know that you mentioned doing dance a little bit when you were younger, but you're so physical on
Yeah.
stage. And but did being a persona, because it's Undercover Cop, allow you to kind of be in a character a little bit more and use your body more? Or
Maybe. I mean, there's certain routines that just that I had to do it. I had a
yeah,
routine when I pretended that I was in a conga, and you're like,
yeah,
you have to commit to this.
yeah,
Otherwise, it's so awkward
yeah,
watching someone like half commit to a physical act out or something like that.
yeah,
And I'd probably around that time watch Brian Regan, and Brian Regan's act outs. He's the king of act outs.
mm,
They're the funniest act outs I've ever seen in comedy.
yeah,
Definitely,
yeah,
I'm ripping them off every time I'm trying to like do an act out. I'm like trying to become Brian Regan, which is like, you know, and that's like Jim Carreyness as well.
yeah.
And so like, yeah, I think
And do you
seeing
practice
someone
them?
like that.
Do you practice them at all, or do you
No,
just do it on stage? And because
just do it on
for
stage.
me, in my head, the commitment is the hard thing of, like, on stage, it's just like, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But there's
I would feel
that.
the other way around. I'd feel like off stage, I'd be like, I don't know if this is. If I was just doing an act out in my room, I would feel like I don't know if this is funny.
Yeah,
I feel silly. Whereas on stage, you're there with the audience and you can
yeah,
really
okay,
commit to the act out. And again, with Brian Regan, he does the details. There's so many details that he'll add to things that other people wouldn't have thought to add.
yeah,
Really
yeah,
building the scene, and I like doing that because of him. Um, yeah, and then but then you're always, the last tour was deliberately going, let's focus on this part of my stand-up, which is my relationship with the audience and
Yeah.
my being disciplined on stage and not throwing a gig,
Yeah.
So you are kind of just constantly doing it, and I don't think it ever stops really. I think, you know, we can all, I'm sure, list a load of comedians who've been going for decades who have decided that they have completed it and it has stopped, and they're not very good.
But they
And
but they talk about it a lot.
yeah, yeah. But then there's loads of comedians going just as long. Pick someone like Tommy Tiernan,
Yeah.
who just is always, if you ever talk to him about stand-up, there's something new he's trying to overcome, and a hurdle he's trying, and a puzzle still he's trying to crack with it
Did
all.
you ever see his improvised shows at the Gilded that year that he
No,
did
I got shouted
40?
out in them a few times.
Did you?
Yeah, it was my first. He had asked for his kids at the time wanted to see my show in Edinburgh, so they came along, and I think what they reported back to him is that I didn't swear. And so if he was having a particularly
Oh,
sweary
really?
show that Edinburgh, he would say if they don't like it, you fuck off and watch James Acaster, which should have upset me, but I was, because it was Tommy, I was
It's Tommy.
delighted that
Yeah.
I was getting that. But yeah, I mean, that's the perfect example, is that he just challenged himself by doing his improvised shows, and
Yeah.
he does shows in weird locations, and I remember bumping into him in Montreal, probably, well, I don't know, it might have been 2021, 22, whenever I did it. And he just had a gig where someone was on their phone a lot, and he was like talking to me about that. He's like, "So how do we deal with this? And how do we, like when that happens,
Yeah.
how do we still keep it funny while dealing with the fact that there's this big distraction in the room?" And it's great. It's really inspiring to just meet someone who is already, Tommy Tiernan is just a cemented legend in stand up. But he's still thinking, how can I get better? And what's the key to improving at this?
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, you kind of like, you hope that, you can
Well,
only aspire to be like him.
but it's just like, George Carlin was inventing himself right until the end and
Sure.
redoing it, and so was Richard Pryor. Like,
Yeah.
just, I find it really interesting how the opportunity to work, and this is just like, but the opportunity to like, so Richard Pryor's, I think, Live at Sunset came pretty much just because he'd had an accident with, and had maybe the space in his life to actually focus on making a show for about 2 3 months. Had a partner who was supporting him in that,
Uh-huh.
who, like, was annotating, and Mitzi at the store was giving him the space to go and do
Uh-huh.
it. And it was pretty much just, the opportunities were there to create this thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, those things are also like, obviously there are lots of things that we put into that, but there are also privileges around where people find themselves
Yeah.
in order to be able to work on things. One of the things I really like about how you talk about your position at the moment is you are aware of those privileges.
Mhm.
You are a lot more aware of, like, I think is when you mentioned on a thing about Rick McElvenney from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and you referenced listening and talk about being so buff, and the fact that, well, and him saying, well, it's easy for me to be this buff because I'm paid to be this buff.
Mhm.
It's like, you talked about, whereas you listen to most podcasts and most people say, you just got to eat right, just got to do that. No, your entire life has to go towards trying to be, but it's not just, it doesn't just happen,
Yeah.
and likewise with, like, I think success, it's very easy to think it's all ourselves. And like your talk about privilege and, having your mum and dad were secure enough, how bad it could go. You could end up at home, kind of like, the worst that could happen is you can end up living at home and you'll figure it out. So
Yeah.
it's okay to take risks.
Yeah.
But like, in terms of, and also now, getting paid enough to be able to give yourself enough space, like, I want to do this thing, let's do this thing. But like, what other areas of what your creativity is right now do you think that you can access that you might not be able to access if you didn't have the career that you had? You're just like, or that would be harder to access?
I mean, there's loads of stuff. I mean, obviously, like any time I've got an acting role, you're like, well, this isn't because I have decided to be an actor, and I've gone and
Yeah, yeah,
learnt my craft and slogged away and not got anywhere for ages and waited by the phone, and finally I've broken through and got, it's because I've worked harder as a comedian,
yeah,
but it's still, there'll be other actors on set maybe, or actors who didn't get the role who were watching it at home going,
yeah.
Fuck that guy,"
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and it's kind of fair enough. And again, so like stuff like that, you get to do loads of things as a comic that, for some reason, the the universe has decided comedians can have a go at everything, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and and that is just an immense privilege with stand up, and that it can open the doors to doing, you know, there are comedians who I came up with who are now TV presenters or actors, or they've, been able to do, they've got their own radio shows or whatever the thing is, um, written books, fiction, non-fiction, had their, written screenplays, become like, writers in that sense. Um, and a lot of that is like, oh, they worked really hard at comedy, and then they got this,
Yeah.
they're in that privileged position where someone would read their script, because like before that, it's very hard when you're a writer who no one's heard of to get your script in front of anyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely there's all of those privileges. And sometimes as a comic, and I've definitely been there, you can forget that those are privileges, and you start to feel quite entitled, and you can be like, why isn't anyone making my scripts? I'm like,
Yeah.
I think I've proven myself as a comedian. And you go, yeah, this isn't as a comedian.
Yeah.
Like, you're
Yeah.
not owed your own sitcom
Yeah.
just because you're going around doing stand up. The people whose job it is to decide whether you like it or not have that job for a reason. And if they're reading the script and going, nah, we don't like it, they might be right. It might, it can't just be that everyone's an idiot and you're this, you're always right, and because people are laughing at you on stage on tour, that means surely you understand how to write a 3 act structure and make a sitcom or make a film. You don't. So like, I can, I've been through phases where I've forgot that privilege, and it always, you can always catch yourself a little bit, 'cause you're moaning, but it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And you're like, why this isn't sitting well, this moan. It feels like it's maybe not earned, and I should maybe reflect on, uh, my how lucky I am rather than what I've not got.
Well, I mean, it's, like human experience. We don't look at the gratitude at what we've got, because a lot of us are healthy and we don't see that. And I suppose the thing I find very supportive, though, hearing you talk about that, is I think that a lot of successful people don't talk about that side of things, because, and so it can, anyone that doesn't have it can feel a little bit like, oh, it's a personal failing, rather than, oh, there are lots of other reasons within that. And
Sure.
so it's a really, I think, a really supportive thing to talk about, like, and and also to talk about, yeah, and you have to work hard, like, it's an immense amount of hard work, and you've got to stay focused on that and consistency, and hard work and consistency.
Mm.
One question I'd have around that, and I'm coming to the last question now, but in a second, but one question I just on this privilege thing: is there anyone that you've worked with comedically that you think is better than their luck ended up being comedically? So, for example, people that you think are really funny, but for some reason something happened in their life, something kind of like the way that things ended up, and it isn't really to do with their own ability as a comedian or their ability to be able to focus, but is actually about something outside of it. Like, would there be people like that
Yeah, I mean, I'd hesitate to name them because, like,
you don't want to out them as kind of like,
yeah,
there's this person
but
that
someone who I'll say, because I think she has spoke about it. She speaks about it loads, all the time, online, on stage, and all this. So it's not me telling tales out of school. But Louisa is someone who I think, again, What Would Beyonce Do is one of the most significant shows
Yeah.
of my generation of comics. Um, and again, very easy for people to write it out of history, I think, or
Yeah.
people who don't know about it, who didn't come up at the same time as it, to not really appreciate what it meant. That show legitimized the free fringe in a way that
Yeah.
shows before, which had all been brilliant, but hadn't quite done yet. And obviously, John Kearns is one of my favorite comedians, and him winning the newcomer also legitimized the free fringe. But the year before him was Louisa
Yeah.
doing that show, and doing a show that she had put loads of her own money into the PR, which she didn't have loads of cash lying around. She really went all in. It was very easy for comics to be cynical about that and go like, look how much, Louisa's putting into the PR for her Free Fringe show, and being quite, I think there was a lot of cynicism directed towards that show that was quite hypocritical. You know,
Yeah.
everyone else was doing shows on the paid fringe. PR was getting behind it. So
Yeah.
why someone doing it independently in a free venue? Why shouldn't they
Yeah.
advertise? Was that show less than than your shows? No, and and then she would promote it a lot online and be like, it was sold out again today, it was full, and all of this. And again, comics at that point, I don't think were used to tooting their own horn and doing that. So like, comedians like, and uh this is again something that I think is not as present in comedy now, and probably Louisa played a part in changing that. Like, but at the time, comedians would be like, "Oh, you shouldn't
Yeah.
tell everyone how well you're doing, but when you've got an independent show on the free fringe and you're doing it completely by yourself and you've put loads of your own money into it,
Yeah.
you do whatever you can to get people through the door, and that kind of hustle uh is going to pay off dividends. And like, and she had full rooms for the whole festival. People absolutely loved the show. She was doing stuff in the show which, again, a lot of cynical comics who haven't made the impact that Louise has made uh would go like, "Oh yeah, it's cheating going into the audience and playing a song and dancing and getting people going like that." Go and see the show. It's not cheating. It's if you're making everyone in that room feel great
Yeah.
and it's really fun, and
Yeah.
then you go into a really personal story about a breakup and you make that funny as well,
Yeah.
and then you put another like massive big Beyonce track on and you dance with everyone. That's No one was doing that. It was a really fun way of doing a really personal and open, vulnerable show. And
It was entirely right for her and totally as she should do persona wise. It was
yeah,
entirely aligned and it was yeah.
I went to see it at Leicester Square Theatre and I loved it. And like, Louisa, if you are listening, I'm sorry that I'm singing its praises this much, because Louisa did tell me very clearly the show is not aimed at me. But like,
And
as a comic, I was a huge fan of it. I thought it was so good. And then she did it again
Mm,
with her follow-up show. Now that's really hard to do that with like a show that has that sort of impact that you've done off your own back. And then the Am I Right ladies did it again. And people can. I'm not going to speak about Louisa's personal life. She's done it publicly, and people can look it up online.
mm.
And it's not as I'm making it sound like uh, you know way more. I don't know.
Well, but she was because she was the first person to talk in those terms. It's like,
Yeah,
there wasn't that kind of, and also make it uplifting. Like a lot of personal shows that might talk about, whether it's somebody dying or a breakup can actually be quite heavy or leaden, but it was celebration. There was a
yeah.
celebratory part of the show, which I think is unique
It's an
to,
empowering and
yeah,
emboldening part to the show. And like, yeah, and like, I think there are comedians today who don't know they're influenced by her. And I think
yeah,
that like she and there's a lot of people like this who like who kind of end up watching the comics they influenced on TV,
mm,
and or listening to their podcast that everyone's listening to or whatever. And I don't think people will know how much before Louisa did those shows at Edinburgh, especially the What Would Beyonce Do show, um, the difference in how people approach the fringe. And there will be some people now, like fantastic new comics, who approach the fringe and follow Louisa's kind of blueprint, and
yeah,
probably don't know that that's what they're doing, because you know she did that show before they started stand up. She wasn't then all over television, um, and uh, and so they're just doing what is now kind of the norm for new comics going up independently and bringing the show to Edinburgh.
mm,
um, and probably people who in their stand up, doing the maybe they're doing like big music cues and just things that are just meant to make the room feel like a party,
yeah,
and also might not be aware that that stems from that show, and that before that show, there's a lot of male comics sticking
yeah.
their turning their nose up at that sort of stuff.
Mm,
So yeah, I think both in the approach to how she does the shows and how she uh, you know, just how she exists as an independent comedian, and the content of the shows and how it's delivered and performed. She's had a huge influence over a lot of comedians, and doesn't get the credit, and also whenever I do hear her talk openly, or I see that she's talked openly about it online, like feeling like she would, she would like to be doing better.
Mm.
She's one of the only comics who I kind of go, yeah, fair enough. Like you do deserve it, and but also I don't want, for people who don't know her, for that to sound like she's sitting around complaining. She's not. She's got a lot of hustle. She's still
Yeah.
trying new things. She's doing a musical at the minute,
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
and that she's doing that from the ground up and trying to do it herself. So like, she's still persisting and moving forward. And I think it's the success of those shows that everyone doubted that
Yeah.
gives her that confidence to still keep doing it now as well, and know that, well, I've been right before and people weren't supporting me. So, you know, I think she rightfully takes some strength from that.
And it takes strength from him, and also you can see the challenge of like starting from the ground up each time, which I think is for
Mhm.
her the thing of where that privilege thing comes in. Like, because sometimes it doesn't take off like it should. Like somebody can be an era defining show, and for some reason it doesn't gel into just having enough income coming in to be able to have space enough not to be hustling quite as hard all the time.
Or the show
And
just
so
doesn't end up on the right
yeah,
platform. I
yeah,
don't know if what would Beyonce do was, I think there was definitely a problem clearing the songs if they
yeah.
did film it. But like if that had ended up on the right platform at the right time, it's a completely different
As a
story.
Netflix series, which wasn't around at the time, that was a
Yeah,
totally different.
Netflix wasn't a
Yeah,
thing. If Netflix like peak of putting out specials, that show had gone on Netflix, it's
yeah,
a completely different story. Um, but then, who knows? I think things might still, there's still plenty of time for things to turn out even better. So,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And it's funny when you're up, and that's the thing about which is my last question about having made things that have succeeded and gone somewhere. I think one of the privileges, but also the great benefits of it is like I think Maria Bamford, I've heard Maria talk about it. She feels lucky to have got her Netflix specials, not because she got her Netflix specials, but because she knows what happens 2 weeks afterwards. Because a lot of people spend an entire career chasing the big carrot of just going, if I get the big carrot, then everything will change. But having achieved what she's achieved, she knows it doesn't change a thing.
Hmm.
You're still 2 weeks at, well, I mean, it does change certain things, but in terms of actually certain parts of the creative process, it doesn't change anything.
Hmm.
In the sense of you're still the same person with still the same problems, or the still the same hole to fill in different ways, and still the same desires to do one thing or another. And so, like with that in mind, talk like the muscle memory of having done a show that worked. How much do you feel like that you would be able to pass on to other people that haven't, or your younger self is another way of seeing it,
Hmm.
of like actually this is one of the things that helps, because I think the muscle memory of having done it, when you've made your third show, you know you can do it. So when you sit down, it actually flows a bit better because you know there's going to be an end result, an end kind of place. But when you're doing it for the first time, or it's not taken off for a few times, there's this kind of self-doubt that kind of
Yeah.
comes in. But I just wonder whether, because you've made so much work and worked on it, whether you'd have anything to say on in that respect.
I think the only thing is that thing of when you're starting a new one and you're feeling like this might turn out shit. It's not going to be as good as the old one. I just personally find it quite liberating to just kind of think, okay, well then it
Let it
it
be
might
shit.
it might be shit. Like keep working on it, and we'll learn from doing it. But make your peace with, maybe this one won't work. And for me, I think like if it doesn't, then don't film it at the end. Don't put it out. Charge people money to see it around the country and in a live situation, but you don't need to immortalize it if you didn't end up achieving the thing you set out to. So like it's not a big deal. But like but definitely, giving yourself, because just giving yourself that freedom to fail means that you're probably going to take more risks or have more fun with it, and discover new things a bit more. Because outside of that, I don't think there's any kind of formula or way of writing. definitely not one that I could pass on to other people, because like often you figure it out yourself. You figure out what works for you,
Yeah.
and you do it. And then, you see throughout history, just anyone kind of making something good, and everyone goes, "How did you do that?" And then they say it, and then a bunch of people try and do the same thing, and it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
doesn't work. So like, yeah, it is just like finding what works best for you. But I think that permission to fail is a big a big part of like, yeah,
Yeah.
like I think everyone can use that when they're
And
starting anything
the
creative.
permission to be playful and mess up in a playful way as
Take
well.
some big swings as
Yeah.
well. I've
Yeah.
been thinking a lot about. I mean, we're currently this will probably go out in a year, but we're currently talking about this when the new, the now new Paul Thomas Anderson film is in cinemas. One battle after another, and I'm thinking about it all the time. So I saw it. I'm going to go and see it for a second time tonight.
Is it good?
I love it, and I've been rewatching a
Right.
lot of his films because it made me go, oh, I just want to go back and watch all of those ones. And so much is like, I forgot how fun they are,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you can just talk about him like a really serious director, and he is, but like he's
He's playful.
so
Yeah.
fun, and actually the big swings are what makes me love his films. And I had it earlier this year with that Weapons film as well. And again, sorry everyone for talking about something that is ages ago now when you're listening to this, but like I was like, this guy's taking a big swing with like a whole bunch of stuff in this film, and actually that's way more exciting for me
Yeah.
as someone watching it. Um, to be like, and often we try and keep things so grounded or sensible, or we try and play within certain parameters, and I don't know why we do that. And then you go and see a Paul Thomas Anderson film, and you're like, we watched Boogie Nights the other day, and you're like, yeah, like the whole Alfred Molina scene is one massive like crazy swing where like, a bunch of stuff that is never, they don't explain it or whatever. It
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
happens out of nowhere. It's very, feels random, but it also feels really real, and you're completely in the moment, and you accept this is the reality of their situation. And you're like, yeah, do stuff like that. Just go for like what would be a really fun scene to film.
Yeah.
And same with stand-up. What would be fun to perform every day, and what would be more fun to watch as an audience member because of that. And just, yeah, take some big swings and go for it. And you might have people, like Louisa had, who go like, oh, that's cheating or that's whatever. But they pay off. There's people still talking about her show now. So
And you
uh,
also have the benefit of that being aligned to you. If you like it, that's you, because that's
yeah,
pretty much where your taste is.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I heard a recent interview with Paul Thomas Anderson. Just the way he creates, it's like
yeah.
Daniel Day-Lewis. The playfulness with some of, like, the ordering food scene in what's it called, the Taylor one that he does,
Phantom Thread.
Phantom
Yeah,
Thread. The, where he's just gonna have this, like,
yeah,
so,
yeah.
like, which is, I had no idea how unscripted that was,
Right,
and it was just the push
right.
towards how ridiculous can I make this sound, whereas at the same time being credible,
Yeah,
and just that he cracked up at the end of doing that as
right.
well. Like, just like
Yeah,
those little details for Paul Thomas Anderson, I had no idea it was that
yeah,
loose. And controlled, but
yeah.
also loose.
I
Those
think,
two
yeah,
things.
from what I understand, he just there's so much work to it all, and then on the day it's like
Yeah,
we can throw this out if we
yeah,
want.
yeah.
But it's because he's created this 3D world. This is
And the
just
structure.
real, and I guess when you work with Daniel Day-Lewis, so he does that with his characters, and so they can therefore do anything he wants with them,
But
knowing that it's within this very real person that he's created. But yeah, and then do something like that scene where like he just doesn't stop ordering food, and that's his way of like, also it's the first time he meets
yeah.
this woman that he's going to fall in love with, and he's falling in love with her already. But that's part of the way he does it, is it's like, just stop ordering this food from her. And it ends up saying so much about his character and the dynamic between the two of them and all of that, while being funny. and,
Yeah,
and like you got to assume what they were thinking on the day was just, do something funny.
yeah.
It's funny to do this, and
Enjoy it.
and
What?
then you kind of, even someone like Daniel Day-Lewis or Paul Thomas Anderson must come away from that scene and go, oh, that's quite good actually,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it also says something about their relationship straight away, and it establishes that. But actually, all we were trying to do was like, it'd be funny if you keep saying, and some
yeah.
sausages and some,
Yeah,
yeah,
don't
so,
don't front end it with your mind, in the sense of go with the
yeah,
playful kind of thing. And
the sausages. Like I literally watched that film a few nights ago. So
really,
this week I
yeah,
watched that. And it's the second time I've watched it. So like I still didn't remember. I've seen it in cinema, so I couldn't remember it perfectly. And when he just says at the end of that, there's and some sausages, which is such, you don't order that.
Yeah,
You say one or two
I'd
or
forgotten
however,
that. I'd
just and
forgotten
some
that.
sausages is just really made me laugh.
Just as an extra aside.
Just a
Oh,
funny thing,
actually, in
just
some
right at the end,
sausages.
and some sausages. It's really funny.
Um, thanks, James. I wanted to ask as well, is there anywhere you go for inspiration? Just like a podcast or anything you've listened to that makes that if you're feeling a little bit when you after you've watched it or listened to it, you go. But Paul Thomas Anderson is a good example of that.
Yeah.
But Paul Thomas Anderson film. But anything else that you'd kind of point to? Like actually, like I like listening to Jerry Seinfeld talk about comedy
Uh-huh.
because I like his comedy, but it doesn't speak to me. But him talking about it, I just find like his scrutiny on it is
Yeah.
amazing. But is there anyone else that you'd mention as a quick aside?
Lately, I think I've been saying it on a few podcasts, but just watching skaters talk about skating,
Really,
I've found it very
who in particular?
inspiring. So like, kind of anyone really. I mean, Tony Hawk speaks to a lot of people about skating. Rodney Mullen. There's not many Mark Gonzalez interviews, but whenever I can see other people talk about Mark Gonzalez, I find him
Hmm.
maybe the most inspiring of all of them. He was
Wow.
like, uh, just a pivotal street skater who's inspired loads of people, who had a very distinctive style, and some of his fails are as like, iconic as like some of the things he pulled off, and just that attitude of like just going for it, and
Yeah,
the how skaters do include the times that they fail in their videos, because
yeah,
that's important, and the way that they all talk about contributing to skating, rather than talking about themselves being the best. I think thinking about how you can contribute to your uh, well, anything really. It doesn't have to be a creative field, whatever you're in, and thinking that you're contributing
yeah,
and moving it forwards in some way, or even not moving it forward, just contributing to the pile and going like this.
yeah,
This is something that, might help other people, or might just even entertain other creative people, and it is a nice way of thinking about things, I think.
yeah,
Um, and just because I know so little about that world and I never intend to skate in my life, it's quite nice to just hear people talk about stuff that you don't know about, talking about skaters that I've never heard of,
mm,
who, you know, the average person isn't going around talking about these people, but this community of people, are talking about, whoever it is, Eric Costin, and that is one of the most significant people to them of
yeah,
all time.
yeah, yeah.
But the average person, you say like, what about when Eric Costin did Chomp on That? What do you think? They'll be like, I do
Yeah,
not care. I don't know who that
yeah,
is or what that means.
yeah,
So like that's the thing as well, where it reminds you that yeah, like it's not about, you know, who's the biggest and who's the, don't know, yeah,
there are so many
it's
pockets
that.
and so many little groups of everywhere in the world of just like,
Yeah, you can get insecure about tons of stuff when you're like lucky enough to have a creative job. Um, and sometimes stuff that you're not even chasing and you're not even going after, you can have a moment of being insecure that, you know, you're not doing things on as big of a scale as someone else, and then you kind of have to remind yourself that you don't want to do that. And then literally just hearing skaters talk about skating is one of those things that brings you right back to what is important, and why you do anything like this in the first place. So yeah, that's the big buzz I'm going on at the minute, and because I get to learn as I'm doing it as well, because I get to learn about the history of all these people and what all these different terms mean. So there's still terms that I have no idea what they're on about. Every time they say them, they say like, front crook. I'm like, okay, yeah. I've seen enough times when people have done a front crook and it seems to be on a ledge
Yeah.
and the board goes up like that, but I'm not really sure what makes it a front crook, because they did something else earlier and they didn't call it a front crook and it looked the same to me. So like,
Yeah.
I'm still so far off of actually understanding how they do it,
Yeah.
but just how they talk about, because it's so fascinating, because it is like an art form and it's a sport. It's athletic, and it's where that crosses over.
Yeah.
But hearing them talk about it creatively is is great. They're the people who I yeah try and go. I'd like to think about being creative the way that they do.
Yeah. I'm not a musician, but I heard James Murphy talking about working with David Bowie
Uh-huh.
and like his own scrutiny of his own process, and then hearing him how much he was beating himself up because he couldn't fit into this like super group of other performers that were
Yeah.
working on the last, David Bowie's last album is it was just so interesting because he's talking into the level of detail that I love the passion,
Yeah.
but I can't relate to any of the terms or
Sure.
the detail of it. But yeah, I really hear that. Man, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate
No,
the time
thank you,
and really giving us time. If anyone is watching and wants to see you on tour, your tour is pretty much called a work in progress, isn't it?
I was just called James Acaster.
James Acaster, yeah. So it's just called James Acaster. Just look for James Acaster. Thanks for coming in. Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Barry.